I have a new nemesis. Oh, yes, I do. And confusion. And this is going to be a mixed bag of thoughts here, from very high highs to one of the lowest lows that I didn't even think was possible in the last 20 years of game making. Oh, Monster Hunter World, what are you? What is this creature that has all this wonderful joy in it, and then suddenly it just goes off the beaten track and falls off a cliff? Well, let me explain. So yesterday I was really concerned the game was coming to an end, and that fear grew and grew and grew. I had some things I wanted to get done very early, but it definitely felt like we should just probably continue the story. I did a couple of side quests because I wanted to like finish my armor set and have my tier set bonus and things like that. But it became very apparent that any upgrade materials I was looking for just either don't exist or I don't know where they come from right now, and I've checked around a little bit. And so it was like, let's go and do the story. Zorah Magdaros, whatever, is here. And I was like, this is going to go one of two ways, right? Either this is another story beat where we are trying something like we've done in the past and it fails, and we then have to do something else. Or this is the end of the game, the base game. This is what I thought was going to happen. I'm going to tell you now, I know this sounds weird. I don't know if we're in the DLC or not. And I'll explain why in a second. Because I should know. I know. Like, we've had a lot of game experience. I should know. But there's something that happened that made me question that. Either way, we got into the main story. What proceeded to happen, and I was dreading this because the last big story set piece the game had done, which involved Zorah Magdaros or whatever, did not go well, and I was like, this is horrible. I hate this. And I was a bit worried it was going to be the same. It was worse. I am not exaggerating here and using content creator hyperbole. Like, this is insane! You know, I'm not doing that right now. This is one of the worst video game set pieces I have ever seen. This is easily top 5. Easily. Like, really close. And I still forget the name of the boss fight that's in... I think it might be Mordramoth or something like that in Guild Wars 2. Which is notoriously terrible. And obviously I went into that blind as well and was like, this is awful what we're doing right now. This is worse. Zaitan. It was Zaitan. This is worse than that. And I know that what happened to me isn't the way it's supposed to be. And in fact, at some point I want to watch a YouTube video of how this is supposed to play out. I refuse to play it again. But... what they've designed, it's a comedy of errors. It's a comedy of errors. They have this simple plan, and I'm sure on paper, it's a very simple plan that's supposed to be quite epic. It's a repeat of the first quest. There's 3 of these molten cores that are on Zorah's back, and you have to kill them. But what they've failed to do, and that they absolutely should have done, is made it a very set linear path to get to each one, which makes sure and ensures the player ends up at a certain spot for what happens next. They haven't done that. They've made it almost free reign of where you go. So when you start, you're like pointing in a certain direction. And so I instinctually went towards that direction. And there's a core that you can kind of see at the very start of the quest. So you're like, well, let's go and kill that core. And you do that core, and then you can either go left or you can go right. So I just went right. And the game doesn't stop you doing that in any way, shape, or form. It just lets you go that way. So I was like, okay, well, there's the next core. I went down there, and I've got a third one to do, and that's like high up above. So I came around, and I'm following the paths that are visible to me to get to there. And as I'm doing the final core, which I got to, a lot of stuff is happening via voiceovers that are happening. Like, oh my god, the monster has appeared. I think it's called like the Black Wyvern or whatever it's called. Has landed and it's tearing the place apart. Fight it with all your might. And it's just nowhere near you. You see on the map, it's miles away. And you're like, oh... okay, so you try and finish the core, but at the same time, Zorah is like shifting and moving, and they're going, oh my god, cling on to the back! Zorah is shifting, the terrain is changing, and they definitely think this is really epic, but all it does is keep blocking you from where you're supposed to go. And so I was like trying to get to where this thing was, and there are so many pathways that are just dead ends. And they're long dead ends. And while all this is going on, they're like, fight with all your heroism! put your courage to the test, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea what's happening right now. Apparently there's a fight going on somewhere, and I'm trying to get to it. I can see it on the map, and I'm like weaving through here. But then it like takes off and it circles around, and your map like gets confused of where you're supposed to be. And then it's like, the Black Wyvern has left. Now is the time to strike, heroes. Attack Zorah with all your might. I'm like, attack what? And I'm like swinging at walls. And on my map, I can see like the ballista and stuff in the distance. And I'm like, you're doing a good job, guys. Thumbs up. And I'm just walking around on Zorah. Like, am I attacking? Because in the previous quest we did, like, it's not like, well, obviously if you couldn't attack something, Mike, you should have gone somewhere else. In the previous quest, we could attack Zorah, which turned out to be a bugged area of the game or something, or some area we shouldn't have got to, where you can straight up just DPS the boss. And so I'm like looking around, I was like, should I hit this or do this? And walking around, and then it's like, he's approaching the barrier. Let's do this and that. And I'm like, I'm looking around, I'm crawling up and down these walls. I'm like, do we go over here? Like, there's nothing marked on the map that's like, this is an attack spot or anything like that. And I'm just wandering around, and ultimately they go, okay, champions, hold on his back, we're preparing. So I was like, oh, all right, just AFK, I guess. This has been going on for minutes at this point. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just chill out and see what's going on. And then I got like winged off, and now I was on the bridge, on the barrier. And I'm like, oh, okay, we're on the barrier now. And we've got the cannons and ballista back. And I'm like, oh my God, not again. Then proceeds the most absurd idea for what he's supposed to do here. Because I was like, where's my cat? Where's Useless? And I'm looking around, and I'm like, Useless is like way over there near a cannon. I'm like, oh, Useless is manning a cannon. I'll go over there. And what they've programmed the NPCs to do, which I think is hilarious because you're just completely taken out of it, is they load all the cannons. There's 3 or 4 cannons. The NPCs will run and load the cannons, and then they'll just stop. Their programming is just to put cannonballs in cannons, and then they just stop. And they stand and stare at this monolithic skyscraper-sized monster. And the idea is, because I was manually loading a cannon and firing it, the idea they've actually come up with is that you should run from cannon to cannon to cannon and just press the fire button, which launches like from 3 to 5 cannonballs, and then just run up and down the wall to make it. It's so stupid. I was like, this can't be real. And then the cat decided that it was done loading the cannons and just decided to start shooting ballistas, which don't do any damage. And I was like, oh, you just given up, have you, cat? Okay, fair enough. But they're doing all this, like, the voice actors are really giving it their all. They're hamming it up, and they're giving it their entire business. They're like, come on, let's go. Let's do this now. Jump down and use the Dragonator. And I'm like, okay, so you jump down to the boat, you fire the Dragonator, throw the switch. I'm like, throw the switch, and then it goes, right, go back up to the barrier and keep shooting it with... I'm like, you can't be serious. I've been doing this for so long. Oh my God. I hate this so much. It was just horrendous. And then suddenly a cutscene plays at some point where Zorah just flies off to the water, and that's it. It's over. And I'm like, that is awful. That is terrible. I know I didn't have the genuine experience that was intended, but it was... I didn't do anything insane. Let me put it that way. It's not like I tried to glitch out or jump over some weird ledge or something. I just followed the paths that were presented in front of me. Whatever. So, yeah, for me, top 5. I would struggle to think of more that are worse than this, but I know I have played them at some point. But easily, like, record-shatteringly awful piece of content. Which really was, interesting enough, Chris came in afterwards. And he said, this is the point I stopped playing the game. Like, unfortunately, that is the point where Chris drew the line and was like, I'm out at this point. This is so stupid. And I'm just out of it. Which is a shame. Because only these story set pieces are this bad. Everything else is really, really, really good. Really, really good. So I didn't know what was happening then. And then I know... I said I wasn't sure. I'm not sure now if I'm in the DLC. I don't think I am, but I might be. Is that I know the DLC is called Iceborne, because obviously I installed the game. When I came out after this into the town, it was snowing. And then some things happened, like we finally solved it. I was like, oh, okay, we've kind of done it. And then it gave me like some... a boat captain appeared who was like bringing these like super rare resources and things like that. I was like, oh, okay. And then the game kind of said, oh, we've had higher level monsters appear. And it felt to me, similar to what you'd seen in a lot of RPGs, is like this is like post-game where you can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get higher level gear. And one big clue to that was like the monsters are now just like Gordon plus, or Fishboy plus, or Barry plus. It's the same stuff, but it's plus now. And I was like, oh, is this just like we've made some bosses with like more HP, more defenses, and maybe there's a super boss or something? Because then it mentioned, oh, now there's a mysterious monster flying around. You should go and find research, and you can do that by just completing your mission board or just doing random expeditions. So I definitely felt at that point within that like 10-15 minute period, like, oh, is this just like you finished the game, but you can obviously keep playing because we don't want you to turn the game off, and you might want to go and get more powerful stuff and get silly with it. But the actual game is done. Now it's just a case of, like we'd see in a Final Fantasy post-game. It's like, you can keep playing, you can just make yourself really stupidly powerful, but the actual game is done. So I had to, like, raise that thought. Obviously, I'm expressing myself while playing, and I'm like, I think this is just, like, end-game grinding to kill stronger and stronger of the same enemies, right? So we're just repeating what we've already done in an almost Diablo-esque fashion. So I was like, I didn't open the chat, and I just said, this is what I'm thinking right now. And if that's the case, if, like, this is just, like, grind away, we're kind of probably done here, sadly. To which the decree was sent, and Chris came in and went, it's not the case, keep going. Okay. And I will trust in that opinion, and which is what we did. So what then proceeded was actually really fun, because I was just back playing the actual game, and I was really having a good time again. And there's the mystery creature. I find this really fun, because I met the mystery creature. So there's Rathian tracks that are located across all the maps, and you have to get bits of them, and it's a much bigger bar to fill up to track this thing. But there are now creatures from other zones are appearing, like they're migrating between all the zones. So enemies that should appear in one zone and now in the other one as well, and they're a harder version. This was a little misleading for me because they are. I didn't know they were harder because I'd known how to fight them, so them having more health, more damage didn't actually matter to me. So I killed like Pukey plus, I killed Fishboy plus, I killed a number of other things on their plus mode. I killed like Gordon plus, I killed Slimeboy plus, without really realizing that they were the enhanced versions until I got back to the smithy and he was like, oh yeah, you killed the plus version. I'm like, oh, okay, sure. As I was fighting a couple of the enemies in the Rotten Waste, I think it was, Specs will find the clip, an enormous mega dragon called Bezelgeist landed on top of me, and I crapped my pants hardcore. I was like, what in the hell is this thing? And then it started dropping bombs all over the map, and I was like, oh my god. And it didn't help, and this is going to be a recurring theme, I think. Basil shows up at the most inopportune times that you can possibly imagine, to the point where I was tearing my face off. Like, I wanted to kill Gordon, Ogadoran, if you're not sure who Gordon is, Ogadoran or whatever he's called, because that's the armor I was wearing at the end of, like, the Zorah campaign. And I was like, well, Gordon Plus must drop similar armor, but with probably more stats. So I know what armor I want, I think, so I'm going to go and get that. So I was like, that's why I was down there. And I'm fighting away and I'm winning and everything's good. And then Basil shows up. And Basil starts tearing into everything. And I'm like, oh my god, I don't know what to do here. And so I like ran back and I'm hiding. And then Basil like messed up Gordon really badly and like did 700 damage or something to it. And I was like, holy crap, this thing is serious. And I want the Gordon stuff. So I was like trying to weave around, right, to like not fight Basil and deal with Gordon. Because Gordon was dead. I killed Gordon. I was like, Gordon's dead. I just need to carve it up. Basil wasn't having any of that. No. And remember yesterday, if you didn't see yesterday's video, I was talking about how that rage and frustration of what's happening in the game you put onto the enemy and not onto the game itself. And I was like, Basil. And so I started kiting Basil back because Basil would not let me go. I kited back and then like sprinting back to Gordon's body so I could carve it off because I want to get the armor, so I need the ingredients and stuff like that. Basil wasn't having any of that. He was just like, I can one-shot you like so easily. And then I died because Basil charged me, and I came back and the Gordon's corpse had despawned. And I was in a rage. Like a rage. I can tell you that we had a team meeting yesterday where we were talking about the things we want to do in 2025, like our big fun events for you guys. And our business manager, Nupss, went, I just noticed, Matt, you're really mean when you play this game. I'm like, dude, that's genuine. I'm so angry. I'm so frustrated and annoyed. But I need to kill Basil because Basil sucks. And I've got to kill him. And so I was like, right, I've got to get back to this. But the corpse are despawned. So I was like, Basil, you're getting it. So I tried to fight Basil. I am not ready for that. Basil hurts a lot. Strategically, I think I can manage it. I was not sure how to manage it in a rotten waste. But turns out that's not something I need to deal with, I don't think. Because I was like, right, I'm done here. I can't kill Basil. I've got what I've wanted out of this zone. I know I need to re-kill some of the lesser enemies just to get ingredients because they're also plussed up and the new armor needs them plus, even though we've collected thousands of them in the past. Either way, doesn't matter. So I was like, right, I'm going to go and do... doing the optional side quests actually gives you a chunk of this mystery thing. At this point, I hadn't put together that Basil is the mystery creature. So I was like, oh, that's, in my mind, that was the new end boss of the Rotten Wastes, right? It's the only place I'd seen him. I was like, oh, there's a new boss in there, like Diablos appeared in the Wild Wastes or whatever. And so I was like, that's that end boss. So I was like, right, I'm going to do some optional stuff. And I had, like, Capture a Barry, blah, blah, blah. But the one that popped up to me that was actually part of the main story was that a particularly vicious Anjanath has appeared. Angie was my first nemesis from day one. Angie was my first big go-to, and I was like, you suck, Angie. I hate you so much. You're always showing up at the last minute, and like 2 days ago, you like interfered in another fight I was doing, and then you disappeared after I beat you to death and just cost me all the materials. I was like, I am going to look forward to killing Angie. Angie's really mean now. Like, really, really mean. Angie's not a joke, and it drove me bananas. Because Angie is super tough now. It's certainly the gear I'm wearing. Angie can kill me very, very easily. Like, a couple of knee hits, like, just strolling past knee hits will kill me. And so I got into the war with Angie, and I was frustrated, man. I was like, Angie, you're going down. I started getting into a good fight with Angie. Right? A really good, solid attempt. I was doing super well. Guess who shows up? Basil. Basil shows up. And I am terrified because Basil just rocks up. I'm like, I cannot believe this. Basil's here and he's ruining it again. He's like the Kool-Aid guy. He just keeps popping in, and then Diablos is walking around, and Basil shows up. I'm like, I can't believe this. And I'm trying to fight Angie, and I'm doing really well. And Angie's got the worst mob AI ever. I got Angie into a weird loop where he's obviously predetermined to do this like really cool epic leap onto a bridge and then leap down on top of you. But you can, if it doesn't work, he just keeps doing it over and over again. And this is happening, and then Basil shows up. The stress and the flutter it causes me is something else. It's absolutely something else. And I now have a burning hatred for Basil. But this is the situation we're in now. I don't know where this goes. I'm along for this ride, man. I'm along for this ride. But I feel like what I need to do, my game plan now for our 5th day of playing, I think we're about 40 odd hours in, is we're going to gear up hardcore. We're going to kill a lot of Gordons and get a lot of Gordon armor. I need a couple of off pieces that I know I want to build my set. I think I want to change my weapon, not in type. This is a big question. A lot of people are like, are you not considering changing weapons? Because one thing I'm very aware of, I want to be clear on this. I am aware that if I swapped to, say, a ranged build or something like that, I would have a way, way easier time with some of these enemies. 2 things here. One, I absolutely adore melee in most games. I like smashing things with big two-handed weapons. So that's a preference. The other one is I'm not super interested in going that ranged build in general, right? I mean, those are kind of the same thing, but it's more comes down to the fact that I love the way I'm playing right now, even if it technically is the wrong decision. So just be okay with that, I guess, because I'm not going to change. It's like, just be okay with, like, yeah, obviously, like, this flying enemy that doesn't land, if you just use, like, a bow and arrow, it's, like, not a problem. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, but I also like the almost role-playing sense of, like, I'm the barbarian marauder with the giant axe sword that's going to chop its head off, right? Even though it's, like, strategically unsound, I guess you could say, and it creates more problems than it solves, but I like it, so that's what I'm doing. Take it or leave it. But I do want to change my weapon style, because I have, like, the Gordon set bonus is, like, more affinity, which I think is crit. Elder Seal is the other stat that I have no idea what that is. No clue what Elder Seal is. So that's something I've got to try and figure out at some point. I definitely think, in terms of problems, people like it when I regard what are my current issues. One, I don't know what some of the stats still are because they're not explained, and Elder Seal could be anything. Divine Blessing I've worked out because it is what I thought it might be, which is something that can occur periodically as an internal cooldown, and then it will reduce the damage you take. Because I kept getting a message saying damage reduction has taken place. So I was like, that's what that is. I got a wonderful piece of equipment called the Vitality Gilly, or Vitality Cape, which just gives you a shield for a certain amount of time. But things that I'm definitely interested in. I think food is something I'm doing very, very wrong. I also kind of don't care right now. Maybe when we hit some bigger wall, we'll deep dive into that. Right now, I'm just happy taking whatever the chef makes that gives me attack and defense. I'm okay with that. But I think it's an area of the game that I've not touched and is probably very strong. So that's something to bear in mind if I really hit a big wall. Fishing, I've not touched at all in any way, shape, or form. I don't know whether this results in some really cool food, right, is from fish, or actually killer ingredients. It could be that, like, a weapon upgrade I need actually comes from fishing, which is how it turned out in Terraria. Is like fishing's actually really, really important if you want certain things. So maybe that's something I have to dive into at some point. But again, not until we hit a wall. I want to change my weapon to be crit based, because as far as I can understand it, and I haven't done any testing on this, is having bonus percentage affinity, which I believe is crit, doesn't count if your weapon doesn't have crit on it, because it's got nothing to bonus up. So we should probably get a weapon with crit on it. I'm also interested in working with other weapons, because there's, like, paralysis weapons. Paralyzing enemies seems like a good idea. Will I take less damage for the occasional paralysis on an enemy? Yeah, probably. So I think that's something I want to dig into and maybe mess around with. I'm going to see what I can construct, because as far as I'm aware, I can deconstruct or reverse engineer my weapon and keep all the materials. That's a little risky, because I have the highest possible upgrade I can get right now. And I'm worried that if I downgrade my weapon, that I won't be able to upgrade it again. So we'll see how that goes. But that's where we are. My goal right now is Basil must die. So I'll check back in with you when Basil's dead. It's going to be really hard. We'll see you then.